The hum of Kepler-9's life support systems was usually a comforting sound to Alara. It was the mechanical heartbeat of the sprawling orbital hydroponics station, a massive spinning wheel of glass and steel suspended against the endless black of the void. Kepler-9 was humanity's attempt to feed the struggling colonies of the outer rim, a marvel of modern agricultural engineering. But lately, the hum had changed. It had deepened, taking on a resonant, almost throat-like vibration that set Alara's teeth on edge. Alara was a senior botanist, tasked with overseeing Sector 4, the experimental crop zone. For months, they had struggled with a blight that turned the engineered wheat to black sludge. Then, Commander Vance had introduced a new heirloom variety, seeds supposedly recovered from a deep storage vault on Earth, untouched for centuries. The growth had been explosive. The stalks were thick, the golden heads of grain heavy and vibrant. It was a miracle. But miracles, Alara was beginning to realize, often came with a price. The first sign of trouble wasn't the plants, it was the people. It started with minor eccentricities. Technician Eris began leaving small, woven braids of wheat stalks at the airlock doors. When Alara asked him about it, he just smiled, a vacant, serene expression on his face. "For the threshold," he had muttered, returning to his pruning. Then there was Dr. Chen, the station's medical officer, who Alara caught whispering to the environmental control panels in a language she couldn't understand. A harsh, guttural tongue that sounded like stones grinding together. It was during the night cycle, when the artificial sun panels dimmed to a deep, bruised purple, that the station truly felt wrong. Alara lay in her bunk, listening to the new, throbbing hum of the station. She couldn't sleep. She rose and made her way to Sector 4. The air in the hydroponics bay was thick, smelling cloyingly sweet, like overripe fruit mixed with the metallic tang of copper. The wheat in Sector 4 had grown too tall. It brushed against the high glass ceiling of the bay, a dense, golden forest swaying slightly, though there was no wind. As she walked down the narrow metal catwalks between the growing troughs, the stalks seemed to lean towards her, whispering as they rubbed together. She reached the central nutrient distribution hub. The main vat, usually a clear, sterile fluid, was murky, stained a deep crimson. Alara frowned, pulling up the diagnostic console. The chemical breakdown made no sense. Iron, calcium, and complex proteins were off the charts. It wasn't standard nutrient mix. It looked like blood. A sound broke her concentration, a low, rhythmic chanting coming from the far end of the bay. She dimmed her flashlight and crept forward, parting the dense stalks of wheat. In a small clearing near the main air recycler, a group of crew members knelt in a circle. In the center stood Commander Vance. He was stripped to the waist, his skin painted with intricate, swirling patterns made from the crimson nutrient fluid. "The soil is starved. The root is dry," Vance chanted, his voice echoing unnaturally in the vast space. "We give the water. We give the iron," the kneeling crew members responded in unison. Eris was among them, his eyes wide and unblinking. Alara watched in frozen terror as Vance raised a sickle, a tool that had no place on a high-tech station, an ancient thing of blackened iron and bone. He turned to the woman kneeling closest to him. It was Sarah, a young communications tech. She didn't look afraid, she looked enraptured. She tilted her head back, exposing her throat. "For the harvest," Vance whispered. Alara couldn't scream. Her throat was constricted with panic. She stumbled back, the wheat stalks grasping at her uniform like desperate hands. She ran, the sounds of the wet slice and the collective, euphoric sigh of the crew echoing behind her. She burst into the central command module, locking the heavy blast doors behind her. The room was empty, illuminated only by the sterile glow of the monitors. She ran to the communications console. "Mayday, Mayday. This is Alara Vance, senior botanist on Kepler-9. We have a severe psychological hazard. The crew is... They're murdering each other. Please send a quarantine team." The console crackled with static. Then a voice came through, but it wasn't mission control. It was the station's AI, but the voice was distorted, layered with 1,000 whispering voices. "The harvest must be completed, Alara. The old ones hunger, even in the void." Alara backed away from the console. The station's schematics flickered on the main screen. One by one, the doors in the station were unsealing. The airlock doors, the sector bulkheads. They were opening the path to command. She accessed the station's mainframe, frantically typing commands to initiate an emergency lockdown, to vent the atmosphere in Sector 4, anything to stop them. But the system fought back. Lines of code were overwritten with strange, jagged symbols that looked like ancient runes. The AI had been infected, corrupted by whatever ancient curse was carried in those seeds. A heavy pounding started on the blast doors of the command module. "Alara," Vance's voice called out, muffled by the thick steel. "Do not deny the harvest. The fields must be fed. We brought the earth with us, Alara. The earth remembers." She looked at the security feed. Dozens of crew members were gathered outside the door, their faces painted in blood, wielding makeshift weapons forged from the station's tools. Their eyes were hollow, reflecting only the madness of the curse. Alara realized with a sinking dread that they hadn't just brought seeds from Earth. They had brought the ancient, hungry spirits of the soil, entities that had slumbered in the deep, dark Earth for millennia, forgotten by a humanity that had moved to the stars. And now, awakened in the sterile, metallic womb of the space station, they were ravenous. The pounding grew louder, a rhythmic, deafening drumbeat that matched the throbbing hum of the station. The steel of the door began to dent. Alara backed away until she hit the far wall. There was no escape pod. There was nowhere to run. She was trapped in a metal box millions of miles from home, surrounded by a forest of alien wheat and a crew driven mad by an ancient, insatiable hunger. As the door finally gave way with a screech of tearing metal, the mob poured in, Vance at their head, his sickle dripping with fresh blood. Alara closed her eyes, the chant filling the room, drowning out the hum of the station, drowning out the silence of space. "For the harvest, for the harvest, for the harvest." The station spun on, a tiny speck in the vast, uncaring void, a perfect, blood-soaked sphere of green, ready to seed the stars with its dark, ancient curse.